Why is my nose always why is my nose always shiny? I don't know. Why do I have to start off my life with that? Hey everybody, it's Misha. We're here today to talk about what's going on with your health and hopefully help you out. Look, um, I just posted a video and it's about an epidemic that's happening. I talk about it a lot. Really isn't. I'm talking about reproductive health this week, but I wanted to talk about non alcoholic fatty liver disease as well, because it really is a problem for most of us and we don't realize. So, look, we all have people that we love, we all have people that we care about, we all have people that we know are suffering from a number of the things I talk about. Part of the reason I'm here to educate, God, I don't know why my video is so huge on my computer over here right now. I feel like I feel like my computer has my video up like the mirror in the bathroom that has you like hyper fixated, but whatever. Okay, so non-alcoholic fatty liver is affecting about 30% of American adults and up to 10% of children, but that number goes up to 38% in children if the children are obese. And how many, I didn't look up the numbers on how many of our children are obese, but it's a big number. So non-alcoholic fatty liver starts to cause a lot of problems. I lost my gallbladder because my liver was put at risk because of insulin resistance. With all of the stuff that I'm looking up and studying to be able to help you guys out, I'm learning more and more about my own health journey and what probably happened to me, how I ended up so sick 2 years ago. So, it's a great thing to be able to learn and disseminate this information. But here's the thing, non-alcoholic fatty liver, I know I'm supposed to be talking about hormones, but I really feel like this is important. So I want to talk about this. Our liver has about 100 different functions it does for us. Storing excess sugar is only one of them. So when we have too much sugar in our system, part of it does go to the liver. But what most people aren't telling you, why I say to be careful with sugars and or fruits and especially fruit juices, is because that form of sugar called fructose, the liver is heavily relied on in the body to store and process that sugar more so than normal forms of sugars or energy that gets turned into glucose. So it always scares me a little when I see people who are eating primarily fruits or especially smoothies and fruit juices. Look, I did all the stuff, you guys. I had a period in life because I believed all the propaganda and I had nothing but fruit juice or water in our fridge. The kids would complain. I mean, in their early 20s, the kids complained because I never had soda in the house. I never had anything but fruit juice going on. And they were a little bit riled about it. But I tried to do all the right things. Little did I know that all of that excess fructose, especially in the absence of fibers to slow down the consumption of it, was probably causing problems for both of my children. And so when I see grandparents giving their littles fruit juice, it sets off this alarm in me that's like, oh my God. And that's real, you guys. I don't generally run up to grandparents and like grab the fruit juice out of their hands or the parents and be like, you're killing your kid. Although that's what's going on in my head, I don't say and do that. Fruit juice, look, when we talk about fruits, that fructose that you're getting in fruits normally, it's one thing to eat it. Like I try to have a pear a day because it's high in fiber, high in chlorogenic acids. It gives me that little bit of sweet. It's really good for me. But remember, I said pears are high in fiber. So when we're juicing things, we're taking the fiber away. And why is fiber in there? You guys, fiber is a non-digestible carbohydrate. So it doesn't get digested and absorbed into your system like the rest of your food source. It's there for a number of reasons. Some fibers are meant to help you clean out your system. Some fibers slow down the sugars that you're eating. Some fibers help you digest the fats that you're eating. It takes a variety of fibers, and just psyllium husk or wheat dextrin, which are the popular ones on the shelf that I hear about all the time, don't do that. I mean, they may help a small amount, but it's like if I want to travel across the country, am I going to hop on a plane or am I going to ride a bike? Because, yeah, the plane costs me a little bit more, but I'm going to get there, right? I'm going to get there in good time and it's going to be efficient. that's the way I see the protocol that I use. So, fibers, it takes a variety of fibers, soluble and unsoluble, to actually manage your blood sugars. But those are exactly what's been being stripped out of your fruits when you're juicing. So my kids know, we no longer have we went from having only juice in our house, like a number of other people, to now that I know we don't have fruit juice in the house. Took me a while to convince my son that that was reality, because he did, a nutrition class in college and thought he was gonna teach mom some things. Isn't it amazing how kids come up and they're like, "I'm gonna teach my parents some things about life." Love him, they're smart, they do teach me some things, but I'm gonna say there's some things I know too. So, one of the things I know is that fruit juice is causing non-alcoholic fatty liver. There's no two ways about it. There's no argument about it. Science is showing that that excess fructose, unmediated by fibers, is causing non-alcoholic fatty liver. This is why we're seeing it in children as young as 4 years old. And that, I mean, when we think about a child's sippy cup, I'm looking for a sippy cup and not, I don't have one. But when we fill the kid's sippy cup with apple juice or orange juice, we think, right? We think we're doing the best thing for them, but we're not. We're overtaxing their liver at a young age, and it's causing them to head more towards insulin resistance, prediabetes, and a number of other issues. I'm going to get to that in a minute. This thing called precocious puberty, where they end up in puberty too soon, which causes a whole other array of issues for this poor child. That mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, are thinking they're just doing something healthy for them. So let's get a grip on reality and what's really healthy and what's not. We don't have fruit juice in the house. When I have mixed drinks once or twice a year, I used to have the fruity ones, and I'm like, what are you doing? Now you're combining alcohol with fructose, and how healthy is that for you? No wonder you feel sick. So I don't do that. I'll have like a martini if I have a drink. And I do drink once in a while. So let's be real. I'm human. But I don't do the fruity drinks anymore. As much as they taste great, I understand that that is like a double whammy on my liver, so I don't have that. Now, when it comes to smoothies, I hear a lot of people like, "Well, I do fruit smoothies, I do, isn't that healthy for me?" And or the people who are putting bananas in their protein shakes. Let's talk about that. Does anybody wanna talk about what's happening there? Chat, I'm missing the chat over here. Thank you, Christine. So when you're adding fruits to smoothies, it's not as bad as juices, right? But let's think about this amazing body, whether you believe in God or not. So, God, the universe, whatever, this body that we have was created with some really great innate intelligence, right? We have this intelligence in our body that is so amazing that scientists are still trying to figure out how this body of ours does everything that it does. They're still discovering things every day. So much intelligence in our body, and yet we're not relying on it. Our body was made to utilize enzymes, so we have to masticate, we have to chew. That helps kick up enzymes that are going to digest our food, slow down the delivery of sugars, some of those things to our system. It goes into our gut. When we have fibers in the food that was put on this earth for us, it sits in the gut and it slows down how quickly that passes through. So, boy, what analogy can I use today for that? Um, oh, well, yeah, let's think about like water or a milkshake. Which is going to go through the pipes quicker? The water, right? The milkshake is thicker. Fibers thicken things up, especially the soluble fibers. So they slow down the delivery of these foods into our system. And yet we, in our wisdom, our conscious wisdom, have stripped fibers out of the foods. And now we're getting sick because that sugar that's inside that food is being delivered into our bodies too quickly. So it's not just the fructose, it's the glucose that gets stored in the liver as well, but fructose gives a bigger hit to your liver. So I was talking about smoothies. Whew, I wish I had somebody here poking me because sometimes I get off track. Like, anybody want to be my personal poke Misha back on track person? But so smoothies, what's happening is you're breaking down that food, right? It's great because you're feeling like, I'm busy, I don't have time to eat, I don't have time to chew, I don't have time, I'm just going to have this smoothie, easy on the go. Great, I'm getting all these nutrients in, good stuff. But no, it's not. because now you've removed some of the processes that you should be doing naturally, and it's causing you to feel ill. You're breaking down the fibers, so some of the enzymes that need to be kicked up so that you can digest your food and have all the probiotics and the good gut bacteria going on. Well, they're just not happening because we're drinking food instead of eating it. So not only are you messing with the fibers that are there, you're messing with the whole process that the body is supposed to have in order for you to break down and digest your food. Crazy stuff, right? We didn't know this. We're listening to everybody drink a smoothie, drink a meal replacement shake. Do you guys wonder why meal replacement shakes don't keep you full? Ever check and see how much fiber is in them? Very little. So if there's no fiber in it and it's supposedly giving you energy or food source, it's actually spiking your insulin. These meal replacement shakes are probably just as damaging as any of the other things. Go have a soda. You'll do yourself better. That's kind of a facetious statement, but seriously, you guys, we need to slow down and eat, and we need to make sure that we're getting in enough fiber, we're masticating, that we're eating, we're spending energy to process the food that we're eating. That's going to help make us insulin sensitive in itself. When we're drinking all of our food, it's making us more insulin resistant because we're not having this energy need of, producing enzymes, producing gut bacteria, producing all of that keeps us healthy. So I am not a proponent of fruit juice. Never again will I be a proponent of fruit juice, and I'm not a proponent of smoothies. I love them just like everybody else. I love them. There was a time when I first started the protocol that one meal a day was a smoothie because I was on the run. So I get it. Like I would run. I was in Boise, Idaho, and I can't remember the name of the shop now. Tropical smoothie something or other, and I would go there a couple of times a week to get a smoothie because I felt like, if I added some protein in, if I did that, I had this smoothie in my car as I'm driving around for Lyft and Uber, that I was doing the healthier thing, right? Because it's a journey. We all are learning, living, and growing as we go. What I say 2 years ago might not be what I feel like today. And how many of you guys can hold up to everything that you said? I was thinking about some other people I've watched online, and it's amazing how something that people say when they're in their teenage years has nothing to do with insulin resistance, but how people will say something early on in life, and then 10 years later, somebody else is like, well, you said this. Well, yeah, I was a kid. I love Miley Cyrus's interview and her uh, vulnerability of saying that a lot of the crazy stuff that she did that made me not like her years ago, she's saying, hey, I was a kid, I was young, I had a lot of fame, I had a lot of things going on, I was a kid. Just the vulnerability of her coming out and saying that, by the way, makes me like her so very much more. And just as she's matured and grown, I like her. Another sidetrack, right? But back to fruit juices and smoothies. Just stay away from them, you guys. I bought my grandson a smoothie the other day. Probably the first time I've given him a smoothie because he has a liver disorder already, a liposomal disorder, in probably a year. It's the first time in about a year I've gotten him a smoothie. I always direct him to something else. Um, and he knows it. He knows that, this is not really the best thing for him. He loves the taste. At 7 years old, that boy makes better choices than most of the adults I know. It's crazy. So, all right, back to insulin resistance, the sugar that we're eating, and hormonal or fertility issues. This isn't really hormones, although it does affect hormones. I want to talk about how this thing with insulin resistance is affecting our fertility. This is affecting our children. And if I may be so bold, I may be pissing some people off right now, but I think that it's more important to say the truth or my truth than to pretend that it's not there. We're seeing children who are going into puberty way too quickly, and it's confusing them. They're very confused about the feelings they have or don't have, the functions they have or don't have. By the way, this talk is going to be, because we're talking about reproductive health. Understand that it's going to be a very adult talk. So if you don't want to be here, please just go on to a different live, but I'm going to talk very frankly about reproductive health. And right now, we're going to talk about reproductive health with our kids because our kids are at risk. They're our future and they're at risk. Not only are they being diagnosed with non alcoholic fatty liver at the age of like 4, some of them, but here's another scary statistic. Look, as children, we didn't, as a human race, we didn't used to hit puberty until about the age of 16. In the 1800s, the average age of puberty was 16. We started modifying our food. We started changing the way our diets were. We started eating more. We started being a little bit more overfed as we started becoming more industrially revolutionized, right? So in the early 1900s, that number, that age of hitting puberty went from 16 down to 13 or 14. So a couple of years got shaved off of how quickly a kid hits puberty. We're going to talk about why that's important in a second. But now, with the prevalence of the food we have, how much food we have, how much we're telling our kids they need to snack, how much we're telling ourselves we need to snack, how many people are out there telling you that you need to eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolic fires burning, which is a whole load of crap, by the way. And that comes from metabolic scientists, not some nutrition or some uh, uh, exercise guru. Metabolic scientists will tell you that eating every 2 hours is jacking up your metabolism and slowing it down in the long term. Okay. So it may look great in the short term, but you're training your body to do something that you're not going to like in the long term. So we're feeding kids too often. The food they have available is highly carbohydrate. It's turning into sugars in their system too quickly. They're ending up with non-alcoholic fatty liver and prediabetes at younger ages, which means they're already insulin resistant at younger ages. Insulin resistance leads into their reproductive health, how and when they hit puberty. So now the long story, the Misha way around this is our kids are hitting on average puberty around the age of 10. Some kids are hitting puberty at the age of 6 or 7. How did we lose 10 years off of this normal natural function in less than 2 centuries? Because of the food that we're getting given, because of the lifestyle we have, because of the prevalence of excess insulin in our system. So I talk about insulin a lot, and I'm just here to connect the dots so you guys can start to make sense. Every time I read something new and understand something new, I'm like, whoa, whoa, I understand now more about what was happening with me. That's crazy. I wish somebody would have addressed it with me earlier. Okay. So when a child hits puberty too early, there's a number of things that happen. They may have a growth spurt. They may end up getting taller than their cohorts. They may end up having a deepening of voice for the boys. They may end up having my kids have taught my grandson to call it his junk. So their junk may get bigger too soon. Girls, their hips are going to widen. Their breasts are going to form too soon. They're going to start to be forced into menses early. And this is all in a body that genetically is not ready for it. This is artificially, environmentally forcing our body into something that genetically should not be happening. So the kids are now having feelings and emotions that they shouldn't have or don't understand, and it's devastating to them. They can have depression and anxiety, and they go through this whole confusion and low self-esteem and as hormones are changing. So like ladies, when you're going through these menstrual cycles and your hormones are changing, how that can be impacting you as an adult, and your brain is fully formed and you can make sense of it. Please remember that there are certain areas of kids' brains that are not formed until they're in their early 20s. And so now we're dumping all of this excess on them and saying, well, they should understand, and we should understand that, that's their right to feel this way or that way. But look, if we're forcing kids into puberty and into desire feelings too soon, they're not ready and understanding it, and that's causing a lot of the issue for our kids. That's on the psychological side. on the physiological side, so they've already grown too much, right? Like girls are getting big breasts and may get picked on for it, and the guys are giving them attention they're not ready for, and they're trying to fit into society, so they do all the things. But what happens on the long term of that, now these kids are more likely to be insulin resistant as they're older if they're not already insulin resistant in puberty because they're hitting oh come on, precocious puberty. That means it's too early, but so they have the growth plate stoppage. They grow really quickly for a minute, and then their growth plate stops, so they may be shorter than the rest of their cohorts as time goes on. They're more likely to have issues with their sexual organs and, for the girls, their breast tissue, and be more likely to have things like cancer later on. Is that really the future we want for our kids? That's not what I want for my kids. I can see now, though, because I was not educated about these things, because I was listening to the things that we were taught about the food pyramid, where fruits and vegetables, grains, and whatnot were on the bottom, and that was supposed to be the bulk of our food. Where I did probably do some harm for my kids. And I can see now where I was in uh, precocious puberty, I was hitting puberty and had breasts way before anybody else in my class. Now see all these symptoms that have caused me issues later in life. I don't want that for my grandkids, don't want that for my kids. So it's important. Like it's good that we're on here talking about us as adults all the time, but I think that once in a while, more often than we should stop and talk about the kids, right? We should stop and care about what we're doing, what our society, our modern food environment is doing to the kids, what our not being educated, and us not being educated is not our fault. That's why I'm here, because I think we need to be more educated and more self-aware about some of these things so that we can help the health of our children, right? We want our children to be able to have the best chance of having their own family. I want to have great grandkids, and if I don't make sure that my grandkids are healthy, I might not see great grandkids because it affects how those kids are going to be able to reproduce later in life as well. Precocious puberty affects the fertility of those children. Now they're going to have issues as they get older, and they're going to have a harder time having a family if they choose to do that. These are some pretty impactful things that we're doing to kids by overfeeding them and giving them food that they just really, the body can't handle. So, I hope all of that makes sense. Is that valuable to everybody? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does anybody does anybody care? Because I mean, it's a big thing for me. Maybe because I have kids and grandkids, I just want to make sure that my family's health is as good as possible. And I feel really bad for the things that I did when I was younger, thinking I was doing the right thing for them, but now seeing how devastating it was for their health. But without getting into big explanations right now, I do want to talk about, as adults, how this affects our reproductive health. So, two things. If you've ever heard me talk before, and if you haven't, we're going to go over it right now. There's five major ways that I say people can tell if they're insulin resistant or not without blood work, right? So, let's go over those five. Number one is if you have high blood pressure. I've been painting. I got paint on my hands. High blood pressure, so 130 over 80 or higher, that is an indication of insulin resistance. So 95% of hypertension comes from insulin resistance. So if you're hypertensive, you're likely insulin resistant. Then you're going to look at the skin, because the skin is your early warning system. It's not just protective, it's not just pretty, it's not just, this thing that we lather lotion on. It's an early warning system, and it's very protective of our bodies. When we have disease and disorder in our bodies, we already know things start to show up in our skin. For insulin resistance, a couple of those things are going to be, if you have skin tags, that's a sign of insulin resistance. If you have darkened skin patches around your elbows, your knees, your groin, under your arms, where your bra rubs, even when I've seen it on people where their shoes rub their ankles, that's likely insulin resistance. Okay. So when you see those dark skin patches on your family and friends, by the way, understand that they're already struggling with insulin resistance. I'm going to give you some other things that can link in, and like, don't just go up to them and be like, oh my God, but just understand that, this is a person you may be able to help because there's a lot of health issues that go along on the backside of this. So, hypertension, skin tags, and darkened skin patches. The two things that I'm going to talk about now that you can tell if you have these, you are most likely insulin resistant, even without the other things that I talk about. So that's PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, and erectile dysfunction for men. So erectile dysfunction and low sperm count and low testosterone are all symptoms of insulin resistance. And it really starts with the insulin and ends up with the low testosterone and the excess body weight and the inability to grow a beard and the loss of body hair and the loss of muscle tone and all of that for men. So if you're suffering with that, look, you guys, as a woman, I know as a woman with PCOS who could not get pregnant for the life of me, who struggled to have a family, it made me feel less than a woman. I'm not a man, not in your shoes, but I know from talking to other men, or I can understand or try to understand from talking to other men, that it's really devastating to your self esteem when those things are going on because we're not educated, that it's this environment that we're put in, it's the system we're put in. And so it's not that you're defunct, it's that we need to change your environment, right? We need to give you what's missing, and what's missing is not anything to do with you being a bad person, woman or man. It has to do with our food. And when we fix that, when we start to address the fact that our foods are missing fibers and nutrients, and so that our body can deal with the food more naturally, I've seen men's testosterone levels get back to normal, men regain their function, women overcome PCOS and have more normal periods, who are able to have children after they were told they wouldn't be able to, who are not having the women who are not having the problems with the facial hair, the hair receding, the dark skin patches, the mood swings, and all of that that goes along with insulin resistance, PCOS, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone. But in a number of ways, and I've talked about that the last few days. If anybody wants me to go over that now, I'm more than happy to do it. You just got to say yes. But I can explain some of the ways that this happens and why polycystic ovarian syndrome is linked to insulin resistance. Why I say insulin resistance is the root of polycystic ovarian syndrome. By the way, the information comes from Dr. Bickman, not from me. Okay, so I just take and read what he says and give it back to you guys so you can hopefully understand some of this too. Sarah, thank you for the love. So polycystic ovarian syndrome just means many cysts in the ovaries. And really, when we take a look at what's happening, women are not converting. Well, let me slow back down. We have two branches of really in a simple term, we have two branches of reproductive hormones, androgens or estrogens. So progesterone lays on the estrogen side. Testosterone is over here on the androgen side. So we're going to break it down a little bit and call it male, female. Okay. So testosterone is the hormone that's predominant for males. Estrogen is the hormone that's predominant for females. Testes produce the testosterone in higher amounts for men. Women still produce testosterone, but the ovaries in women convert that into estrogen. The men don't have ovaries. There's a little bit of this, it's not aromatase. So ovaries produce a lot of aromatase, and that's what's converting the testosterone into estrogen. There's only a small amount of aromatase in most men's testes, and that's what's transferring some of that testosterone into estrogen for men. Because men need estrogen too, just not as much as women. So there's this real hormonal balance that has to go on, right? So, but whether you're man or woman, that hormonal balance gets jacked up when insulin comes into play. So, and there's a number of ways that happens. So if men are starting to gain weight, number one, understand that you don't gain weight without excess insulin in the body. Insulin distributes the glucose to the system. I was listening to some doctors today, and just because I've talked with Dr. Bickman and read his stuff and Dr. Fung and a number of other people, I get that they're trying to simplify it. But I love when Dr. Bickman talks about every cell in the body being susceptible to insulin, because when we think about it, every cell needs energy. And when we break it down and stop looking at insulin just as a fat transporter, we understand that insulin is an energy transporter. Okay, so it's taking the energy that's being converted into glucose in our bloodstream and it's delivering it to the body. So insulin is important, but when it gets to be too much, our cells get resistant to it. Now it starts to jack up signals from the brain to the testes, signals from the ovaries, and we start to have this imbalance in testosterone for men, estrogen for women, or both of them. But in men, when there's too much insulin, and that's the cells are becoming resistant, now what's happening is the insulin is carrying that excess energy to fat cells. Okay. So now men are putting on fat because there's too much insulin. And when the fat is created, you guys, there's this, remember I said aromatase, it changes testosterone to estrogen, and men generally don't have this problem because it's their testes aren't doing that job. But when there's fat, the fat cells act as if they're ovaries in men. They carry a lot of aromatase. So they're eating up the estrogen that the testes are producing and or testosterone, and they're converting it to estrogen. So now men end up with excess fat. They end up with man boobs and love handles and moodiness and inability to grow hair properly or grow a beard properly, as well as sexual dysfunction, loss of desire, all of that. But it didn't start with low testosterone for most men. It started with high insulin. So, what you want to know is that the higher the insulin for men, the lower the testosterone. So, if you're having problems with testosterone, give it a shot. Address your insulin, and a number of men have had their testosterone levels get back into normal range within 3 months just by addressing the fact that they're insulin resistant. No hormone replacement therapy, no pills, no injections, no nothing, just allowing their body the chance to react normally. And for women with PCOS, so it kind of happens a little bit differently. Some signaling that happens from the ovaries um, doesn't happen because it's the opposite for women. So when insulin is present, it starts to stop the I'm not sorry. Yes, it stops the breakdown of testosterone into estrogen. So as women have cycles, because the all estrogen starts out as testosterone. Women are just like these factories, turning the testosterone into estrogen, gives us our hips, our breasts, our wonderfulness. But with PCOS and high insulin, that is stopped. And so now we have more manly characteristics, right? We're more aggressive. We have hair on our face. We have male pattern baldness. We have excess weight being put on because it's starting with insulin. There's a reason that PCOS and weight gain are linked, and it has to do with the insulin. So either way, you guys, whether it's PCOS or erectile dysfunction, really take care of the insulin and those issues get better. So how do we do that? I'm going to try and make it super simple because I got a little boy to go see. Um, what we want to do is understand that our food is imperfect. We want to understand that we are not getting the fibers that we need in order to be able to digest our food and allow the sugar levels to stay normalized and the insulin levels to stay normalized. So that fiber, we have less than 50% of the fiber in our food today, whether you're eating raw organic or whether you're eating boxed stuff. The food that we take in, there's about 50% less in those foods than we historically have had. And this is causing a problem for us today. So combine that less fiber in our food with the fact that we're being overfed and overeating. Now we have a problem. So how I overcame my diabetes, reversed my diabetes, reversed my hypertension, reversed a number of things that were going on with me was by simply adding back in fiber to my day. And because I know that you're not going to get me to sit down. I've tried, you guys. I tried veganism. I've tried all the things, but I know, especially with my lifestyle and all of that, it's not sustainable for me to think that I'm going to get in this wide variety of fibers. Look, if you're somebody who can, amazing. I applaud you. Please go do that. But if you're not, I supplement with with my fiber in a pre-meal drink that I have before I eat anything, and that's given me my health back. It's gotten me to be able to throw away a walker, a cane, the disability plates on my car, be able to work out again, get up and down off the floor again, play with my grandkids, have my blood pressure under control for the first time in almost 30 years. So I just simply supplement. If you guys want to know what it is or want to talk to me about it, just go to my profile and tap on that link. There's a number of options there, including a WhatsApp link for how to get a hold of me because I deal with people all around the world. So I prefer to just talk on WhatsApp because then I get less confused when I have to switch between apps. I miss conversations with people. I'm willing to help you and answer what I can. Look, I really hope that this helps you in some regard so that you can understand what may be happening with you. Um, Anyway, this protocol has really helped. Hey, Jason, I hate when I wear a white shirt because all the letters are white and I feel like I'm missing things. So I've got to stop. I love white shirts, but I just don't like them when I'm on live because I can't see all the white lettering on my white shirt. All right, guys, I'm going to go find this young man that I so adore. I hope that everybody has somebody in their life that they love as much as I love this little man. And I hope that you have things in your life that you enjoy, and if you do have grandkids and kids or nieces, nephews, people in your life that you love and want them to grow up healthy, regardless of what mom, dad, grandma, grandpa have done, please understand that we need to control the insulin for the kids too. And the protocol that I use, by the way, my 11-year-old granddaughter uses it, my 13-year-old grandson uses it, my 5 and 7-year-old grandkids drink the tea. My daughters use it. It's completely safe. It's a food product. So we have babies as young as 18 months old. As long as they can drink, they can use it. Of course, not in the same amounts as adults, but it's not like a medication, a pill, or whatever that you're like, oh, you can't do this till you're 18. And by then you've already gone through puberty too early and caused all this damage. No, this is something that can help them right away. So if you love your family and if you want to know what this is so that you can help you and your family or anyone that you know that has some of the symptoms, please get a hold of me. Let me know. And in the meantime, there's a link to an ebook there with 6 simple steps. Go download that. That'll get you started. All right, guys, I'm going to go see this boy. Love you all. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you later.